Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore Positive. We are positively here at Mako, Ocean City, Maryland. Everybody coming together, all the politicals, the electeds, and people like me here chasing bands and food. It is our 27th anniversary. We're eating great food. I'm having some ugly pie here from Salisbury, Maryland. Also some Fisher's popcorn. We will be at Fadley's on Thursday, kicking off 5 consecutive days of crab cake tours. All of it brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. We get some Raven scratch-offs going next week as well as GBMC and our partners for our 27th anniversary, Curio Wellness. This guy is a defending champion, guy I love having on the program. He is the sitting Montgomery County executive. Marc Elrich is a baseball fan. A wonderful guy to talk to late night here during the Mako convention about all things political. And you have a unique sort of designation because you use the S word. Socialism is a word you use. I don't know how you get elected in Montgomery County, but you do.
Because you don't talk about it.
Well, go ahead. Let's talk about it.
Well, but policies are supposed to be made based on what are the best policies. So what I try to do is frame an issue. What are the problem we're trying to solve? And then what are the things you do to solve the problem? I'm informed by, a belief that the function of government is to do the best to serve the people. And, particularly to look after the interests of the least among us who have the most stress in their lives. Also to make sure that middle-class families, have the opportunities and that we meet the expectations of providing a community they can live in. But for me, the socialism is kind of just a philosophical approach of who do you govern for? I'm more interested in what the powerful people with money want me to do, or am I more interested in making sure I take care of the people who expect me to provide a place that's decent?
We have a lot of people with powerful people with a lot of money in your county. I mean,
yes, we do.
You are a rich county by any measurement in the country, right? Upper 1%, you would say? Yeah, is that true? Probably.
Yeah, we're probably in the top 10.
Okay.
I think Maryland's got the most millionaires, or is one of the wealthiest states in the country. Which is the irony sometimes when you run out of money and can't do things.
Well, Potomac is one of the more affluent places that I've been in this country. But you also have poverty in your county. You have all sorts of things in your county, right?
We're pretty spread out. We the county, which was, when I was growing up, 95 or more % white, today is 16% Asian, 21% black, 22% Hispanic, and in the mid-40s white. So it's been a huge change.
It is majority non-white.
Majority non-white over 50 years. It's been a real serious transformation. And, our job base, which was originally largely federal government, one of the problems that's been talked about down here is counties like ours, and to some extent Prince George's County, were dependent on the federal government. And we were inflation-proof because our businesses didn't go up and down. We didn't have a lot of big companies. So that level stayed pretty level, and everybody always had a federal job. It's in recent years that obviously the federal government's become a lot more unstable. We have no assurance of how many jobs. We're looking at a lot of job losses now. Maybe could be 20 to 40,000 job losses from the feds.
Well, you knew the first time around with Trump. You sat through that, and now this time around, we're 8 months into this. I can't think of anybody who probably dislikes Donald Trump more than me than you, being there. But this time around, the whole chainsaw with the Nazi creep from South Africa, all of that for you that keeps you up at night in your county,
right? Well,
it
keeps me up at night because of the things they think about doing. I mean, it really grates me when they talk about, the tax dollars should only go to Americans who pay the taxes. Our immigrant population pays taxes. They don't have Social Security numbers because they can't get them because we won't legalize them, so they file under with these ITINs. So they've got an account number, but it's not a Social Security account number. The federal government and Maryland collect a ton of tax money from these people because on their jobs, they're required to pay taxes. Their taxes are deducted. And so they're paying like everybody else and don't have the blessings of the benefits that come from their tax dollars in a lot of ways.
So we're already using them and screwing them for being citizens. They're not real full. They don't have any full rights at all. And now we're going to take guys with masks without ID and throw people into vans? I'll have Chris Van Hollen here later on discussing this.
Yes, he started out this whole thing was we're going to get the thugs and the criminals off the streets. If that's what you wanted to do, we don't have any problem with it. have worked with ICE. I mean, we're no longer on the sanctuary list. Hopefully that lasts. But, our policies were, if they were serious criminals, we had a list of crimes, and if ICE came to us and, if they were
MS-13 is a real thing in your county. Right. Sure.
So if they were gang members and if they've done crimes, and particularly anything vaguely violent, anything with weapons, heavy drug dealing, things like that, we've been willing to work with them. So, and when we met with them, and I met with ICE more than once, they would insist we're not interested in the low-level crimes. We're not interested
Before Trump.
But literally, like months before Trump.
Joe Biden had ICE too. It just wasn't known for it, right?
And so
did Obama.
Yes, everybody's had it, and everybody's used it. And we report anybody gets arrested, gets put into the national database. We've not done things to try to prevent them from enforcing the law, but we've, kind of emphasized people who are in our community who are working every day should not be subject to being deported. I shudder to think, and I keep reminding people, and you heard it yesterday in one of the conversations that I was on a panel about, there's real concern in Maryland and the agricultural counties for the loss of farm workers.
It's the same as picking crabs.
And I've already had somebody mention that they know of a farm that had to shut down because they couldn't pick their crops. That's a real thing.
Criminalizing the people that are growing, picking, providing, transporting, cooking, washing, and bringing to your restaurant food. You want to criminalize those people. What's wrong with you people?
Well, the worst,
because they look like me.
But you are kind of brown. Yes, you got it.
I thought I was white for a long time, Mark. I did. You know what I mean? I'm not white. I'm just not. I didn't realize that. I've had some privilege of being white, but I wouldn't if Trump's Gestapo came in here.
And that's the thing. These folks, if when they shut that down, it's like you're also taking food off the table. Do you realize that you're going to collapse American agriculture? And in my county, where we're less agriculture, but we do have temporary workers who come in and out of the county. If you go to construction,
especially in the north part of your county, sure, right,
where the agri reserve is. But if you go to construction sites in Montgomery County, you go to any restaurant in Montgomery County, a whole lot of the back house of the restaurants and a whole lot of the people working on construction sites are brown.
That's not Montgomery County. That's every county.
That's every county. And so these folks are doing these jobs, and if you deport them all, have you contemplated the effect it's going to be? Because you don't have enough unemployment in the rest of the population to replace these jobs. So already you're guaranteed not to have the workforce to do the work these people are doing. And then you've got the fact that, for example, on farm labor, there were experiments done in California trying to get college kids to do farm labor so they could cut themselves off, so they could cut out the supply of immigrants coming across. That experiment failed miserably.
White kids in Fresno did not want to farm.
No, and white kids, in college did not want their summer spent working on a farm in the hot sun picking crops. So however you feel about immigration, you ought to think about the economy and ask yourself, if you do this, if you carry out what Trump's talking about doing, what the hell happens to the workforce? What's it mean for the business owners?
What's it mean to the price of food?
What's it mean to the price of food? These are real things that are going to happen. And I can't believe they're making policy without thinking the whole thing. They hate people so much that you will cut off your nose to spite your face is really stupid. They're hateful people. That's bad. Being hateful and stupid is even worse. And to be willing to endanger the economy because you hate people and don't want them here is just mind-boggling to me. Offer them a path to citizenship. Make sure you get all their taxes, whatever the hell you need to do.
Well, you're speaking to the son of a Venezuelan immigrant who was only here out of the blessing of having a cousin who was a Hall of Fame baseball player. That's why my father wound up here. And, part of the story, as I understand it, was that Louis played in Chicago from 56 to 64. He and Bill Veeck did not get along at all, even though he returned years later. He was never getting paid fair because this was the whole Brooks Robinson wouldn't get paid fair. Mickey Mantle wouldn't get paid fair. But in 64, he came to Baltimore, and what he wanted to do was bring his family, and two cousins came with him, my father, my father's brother.
Wow.
And I am the last Aparicio left in Baltimore. I'm the only Aparicio that ever really lived in Baltimore because I was adopted.
Yep.
My father went back to Venezuela in 81 after my father became a citizen here. My father worked to become a citizen here for 16 years. And then decided to go back to Venezuela because that's where his mother was and his family was, And he left me here because I was adopted. Tried to steal me. Literally tried to abduct me
Congratulations on avoiding that.
Big time. Yeah. So I have a different perspective on certainly Venezuelans, Mark. So I flew down to Disney World for a day back in March. I had a cheap flight. Good band was playing at Epcot. I went down alone for a day. And my brother lives in Kissimmee, who was born in Venezuela, but is an American citizen. He and his wife own businesses here. They're first language Spanish speakers. Their children are in college. They're the kind of people that Trump would try to throw in Alligator Alley. Now, that being said, I landed down there, and I had 2 Uber rides when I was there. My brother said everyone in Kissimmee is Venezuelan. Everyone. Every hotel I went into, every coffee, everyone there looks like me. The girls are beautiful, too. Men are handsome, and the girls are beautiful. My Uber driver was your age. You want to tell everybody how young you are?
75.
All right. This guy was 73. He was a 73-year-old man who was an Uber driver for me, and I'm in the backseat of his Uber, and he picked me up at the Orlando airport. I'm in his car 20 minutes, and we had a 20-minute political, you're Venezuelan, you're later to Luis Aparicio, so it was all that, right? I didn't say that to the end. I was just BSing with him on the way out. I told him, hey, you might know my family a little bit. But he told me, he said that he was from Caracas, and he said, he turned, he looked at me, he spoke to me through the rearview mirror, so it was very dramatic, you know what I mean? His eyes were up in the rearview mirror.
But not on the road in
and
front
he
of him.
said to me something that made me cry. He said, we are not nomadic people. I am not here because I wanted to come to America. I'm 70. I came to America when I was 61 years old, learned English 15 years ago, enough to speak to you in the car, and I'm driving an Uber in America because I would have died in Venezuela. Chavez came in and took everything from everyone. He said, I had a job, I had a career. He said, and then it was gone, and there was nothing for me there except poverty, theft, all of that. He said, we're not nomadic. I didn't want to live in America. There is no Venezuela for me to go back to that is safe for me and my family.
Well, I think, that's a story of the immigrants that make up this country's population. You were born outside of here. Your kids will be first generation.
No, I was born here.
You were born.
I was born at Church Home Hospital. Don't get the ice people on me, Elrich. Come on now. I was born at Church Home Hospital. Yeah.
So I'm second generation. My grandmother came over here around 1903. All my grandparents came over from Europe in the early 1900s. Every single group that immigrated to America faced what the Hispanic population faces today. Every single group, except for white Anglo-Saxon Protestants from England. But if you were from any place else in Europe, Germans lived in what we would call ghettos. They couldn't live in the other communities. As late as the 60s and 70s, places like New York and Boston had urban collections of population that were pretty much segregated by the ethnic groups they came from. I remember being...
Little Italy.
Right. And I remember being told, like, there was a pizza shop that we wanted to go to, and it's like, well, you can't walk over to the pizza shop because that's somebody else's territory, and so
it's like that movie The Warriors, right?
So we'll drive over there, and then you go in, somebody will go and quickly get the pizza, and then we'll leave. And so we were really ethnically divided for a very long time, but everybody who's come here, we have integrated into America. That's why we all have such a common set of values, and we go to the same schools, speak the same language. We are comfortable. We're not at each other's throats over differences in religion.
It was designed to be a melting pot.
Yes, and we're not fighting over things. It's amazing to me when we do these festivals because we're so multicultural, and you'll see people that if they were back in their home countries would not be able to stand each other. They would be killing each other. And here, they're next to each other in tents at a festival and talking with each other. The melting pot has worked, and it would work perfectly well with the Hispanic population if we just focused on making sure that kids get educated, people get jobs, and they will wind up just like the rest of us. Some of them will become Republicans. That's sure as hell true in the Hispanic community. And some of them will become Democrats, and some of them will get more radical. Whatever it is, they will be like the rest of us have turned out. And this fear of this one population, and I think it's our own ignorance of ourselves. People don't know what their grandparents went through. Nobody talks about it. A lot of kids grew up and their grandparents are very old. They weren't talking about, I came here and I lived in a ghetto in New York or I lived in a ghetto in Boston.
Well, I've never met a Jew who didn't have a grandmother, grandfather that was involved in some way in fleeing the Holocaust. And the thing that breaks my heart, man, I went to Amsterdam I've been to Amsterdam a bunch of times, but 3 years ago I finally went through the Anne Frank house. I did. You done that experience?
I didn't do the Anne Frank house.
I had never done it. Probably 5 times I went to Amsterdam before I did. 6th time I went. And we went with the man who saved my wife's life, who's German. And we went in there. You go into the house and you're trapped in the house. In this row house. You're trapped in the room that Anne Frank. I mean, it's... You walk out of there and you can't do anything. You walk out of there and you're paralyzed. My son said to me at Costas in Dundalk, about 4 months ago, we're having dinner, and he and his wife did the Anne Frank house last year on their own. And he lives in Colgate East Point, East Baltimore. The neighborhood I grew up in, I was the only Hispanic in the school. There's another family called the Flores family. The father was from Colombia, mother was American, gringo like my mother. But they were 3 Colombian kids, but they were as American as me. They didn't speak Spanish. None of them did. So there were no Hispanics in my neighborhood. First language Hispanics in my neighborhood. None. Not anyone in a house. There were no black people in my neighborhood either. It was Archie Bunker's Dundalk, 1970s. Okay?
Yeah.
Redlining. So now in the same house that my parents bought in 1951, when my dad came here to work on bombers in the 40s from Scranton, Pennsylvania, Martin Marietta, my parents bought a house in 1951. I lived in it 3 generations. My son now has that house. So my son is in the house that I grew up in the same bedroom I grew up in, the whole deal. And that neighborhood is 78% Hispanic. And my son said to me in May when we went to dinner, he said, "Dad, the neighborhood is like Anne Frank. Everyone has their shades down. Everyone's afraid to talk to everybody else. Everyone's afraid that if one of them gets raided, the thing they're going to do is finger everybody else in the neighborhood. So everybody's afraid of each other and of being outed."
Yep.
This is not a good America, Mark. It's really not.
This is not where we should have wound up, and it's really a shame. But, I'll say, as disturbing as that is, I don't want the issue with black Americans to get pushed to the side, because this is the other group that didn't ask to come here and has been here for 100 years, and they still don't have the full rights and, the abilities in society that white people have. And
white privilege.
And we have refused to come to terms with the effects of racism. And so every time, the immigration issue is important, and it matters a lot to me, but I don't want people to forget that you've got this whole community who we have systematically figured out how do we keep them out? How do we make sure they don't have the opportunities that everybody else had? And it's really disturbing. I grew up in D.C., and my neighborhood, I lived there from 49 till about 1960. In my neighborhood, but it was the 3rd neighborhood we lived in since I was born. I was there from when I was about 4.5, because I went to kindergarten there. And I started kindergarten when I was 4.5. So between that and 1960, my neighborhood goes from all white to all black.
In 11 years?
It's from 54 to 60, 6 years, 7 years. That quick. People were not prepared to have black kids in their school or to have black kids on their block.
So they moved out?
They moved out.
White flight.
I had friends. These are we're like 9-year-old kids, and we're friends. And I remember going over to my friend's house to ask him to come out and play, like I always did. His mother answers the door and says, "I see that you touch black kids. Ronnie can't play with you anymore." It's like, holy shit! What can you say that?
What's wrong with you?
It's like, how
that's what you learned as a 9-year-old boy.
That's what and I'm like, how do you think like that? And when I came to Montgomery County, which was segregated, and very few up until
it was the place the white people went.
Up to the
right,
up to the fair housing law, almost every piece of property in Montgomery County had covenants on it. You couldn't rent to a black or a Jew, and you couldn't sell to a black or a Jew. And sometimes they threw in Catholics.
Well, there weren't Hispanics there to buy them, so they didn't put them on.
That's right, they weren't there.
Them
But so I have this memory of this kind of exclusionary society, and it's in my lifetime. And I think about, what, and again, you say, I grew up and I still think myself as a kid, my parents are working class. My father was a postal clerk, he sorted mail. My mother was a waitress. She had a 7th grade education. My father had a high school education. I think about growing up and thinking I could be anything and do anything. And I thought about the black kids I knew who didn't think they could be anything or do anything.
Including president.
Including president.
The Obama thing. Marc Elrich is here. He is the good county executive at Montgomery County, just to the south. We got better crab cakes, but we'll get into that later. Obama getting elected twice, I thought we had really made strides, man. I thought, we're in the good days here. The pendulum of politics and of racism and money, and really, let's get to the heart of this. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but the outside influence. I mean, as we sit here right now, Donald Trump's playing footsies with Putin on our soil. War criminal.
Yes.
And
who's supposed to be arrested because he's a war criminal.
Second time around, this racist felon has disrupted our culture, and it's really being done with the influence of Russian compromat. It's being done with the internet. It's being done with money of oligarchs. It's being done with dark money and PAC money. You've seen all of it. How long have you been in politics? A long time, right?
So let's say I was active in University of Maryland. Actually started.
We always get arrested a couple times, right?
No, I almost got arrested. I've studiously avoided getting arrested because I was always afraid what would happen to me in jail. The only time I got arrested was voluntarily at the South African Embassy, where a bunch of us lined up, and the police knew what we were going to do. We were going to walk up to the embassy door. We were going to say, we want to come in and talk. They're going to say no. We would just not move, and then the police would take us, put us in nice little handcuffs, gently, no rough treatment or anything, and then put us in a bus, and then no charges were pressed. That was the only time I was arrested. But when I was in protests, I grew up being afraid of being in jail and being afraid of what the police would do, and being,
You were afraid of the police?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, most of us were. When you drove, I had long hair. And,
Should I let my hair out, make you feel more comfortable?
No.
All right.
But I had long hair and, and a beard, and driving a Ford Econoline van, it was like, it's a paranoid thing to do. But the thing, and I remind people, I could stop being profiled the moment I cut my hair. There are people, there's nothing they can do to stop being profiled. If you're black, you're always black. You're always clear who you are. For me, I cut my hair, I, go on this different path, and I'm just like everybody else. And that's what this country should be like. It should be, that everybody gets to do everything. So like I said, I started doing political stuff at the University of Maryland. Then I didn't do political stuff, except I was involved in demonstrations against the wars in Central America and stuff like that. I got involved in climate change and, supporting efforts to, the early awakening of the climate change movement in the early 70s. I did all that stuff, and then at some point I ran for city council in Tacoma Park. Lost my first election, came back 5 years later, ran again, won an election, served 19 years.
What was your vocation? What did you do?
God, so
what were you doing when you ran?
I was teaching.
Teaching? You were teaching, okay.
And actually, before I was working in the food co-op. We had a food co-op. We still have a food co-op in Tacoma Park. It started on the edge of Tacoma Park in Silver Spring. I was part of their first worker collective. It was a community-owned co-op. The workers managed the store. The community decided what products we want, what hours we want you open. So I had, really early experiences in worker-managed businesses, which I really liked as a model. And I did that, and then I went into teaching, and I taught elementary school for 17 years in one of the highest poverty schools in the county. I moved into the neighborhood that school served, so I had options. My option was I wanted to live in an integrated neighborhood where I could raise my kids in a place where they would see and be able to be with everybody, and not in other neighborhoods where they wouldn't have been exposed to that. I ran for county council 4 times and lost. But I always got, people would say, you get more votes per dollar than anybody does, but I didn't get any dollars because I never took developer money. I never took money from the big special interests. And so they knew that if you don't have money, it's very hard to win. And I had a relationship with newspapers that wouldn't cover me. And because they knew that if they don't cover me and they don't say what I said, if they don't put me in the articles about the election and don't say, well, this is his opinion about this, then my message never gets out. And the media was very good at making sure my message never got out. And on my 5th try, I won a county council seat. and also
Then you got a voice.
with very little. And in that year, I raised a whopping $65,000. The other three at-large council members, I were in the neighborhood of $300,000 and $400,000. So I made my final breakthrough, and then I had 2 more elections. I won, top vote getter the last 2. I've got more votes as county executive in 2 races. I ran very tight primaries, but my last primary, I was outspent like $24 million to 1. And the development community just poured money into this guy's campaign, and he poured millions of dollars of his own wealth into the campaign. And I'm thinking, like, it would have been cheaper to get me killed. You know?
Right, yeah.
So I've been through this.
When I was going to run, which is why you're sitting here now. Why you're sitting here now is my wife got cancer 11 years ago, and I watched her try to survive for 2 years, and she did. And then the city caught on fire. The mayor went to jail, Healthy Holly. Trump got elected. I'm seeing all this happen. I'm like, I got to get loud. I got to do something. And Ted Venetoulis, the late, great Ted Venetoulis, said to me, you'll get more done losing an election than you will winning, is what he said to me, right?
Interesting.
And I didn't run because I couldn't win. But when I did talk to people about running for mayor, and this is when Brandon got elected and won, nobody thought Brandon could win.
Yep.
When I sat down with Brandon, they're like, nice kid, he can't win. He didn't have money. Nobody's going to invest in him. And they're going to put their money behind the white candidate, Mary Miller. It's just all of that, right? The Baltimore Sun's money, the right-wing money that's always trying to out the city. And everyone I talked to who knew what they were doing about real politics, Don Moeller being primary and being my partner, said to me, you got to go in the basement. You got to call people and ask for money. You got to call St. John's Pride. You got to call. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I ask people for money all day long to do this. I got sponsors, you know. I'm like, I'm good at asking for people for money, and I'm good at selling it. I'm not selling my soul to win an elected seat. I'm not going to do that. I'd rather lose than do that. I don't want to win that bad.
I had people tell me what I could do to get money or support if I would take certain positions, and I can't do that. It's like
this is my position.
And it's like I'm not going to tell the residents that this is what I'm going to do and this is what I support, and then flip my position because I'm going to get a check for flipping my position. I can't do. I would rather lose. But I would also say, like, I was a school teacher, and I knew that if I lost an election, I'm going back to the classroom the next day, where I was the day before, and I loved teaching. And teaching elementary school was a really great, 17 years.
What grade did you teach?
I taught 14 years at 4th grade and 3 years at 5th grade. Really great years. Really great years for kids in their learning trajectory. It's like the little kids you couldn't have a serious conversation with. The 4th graders and 5th graders are starting to think about their place in the world, and they're cognizant of more things in the world.
You're molding them more as a teacher?
And so you could. So I would ask my kids, what I would call moral questions. I'd pose a dilemma, like if a state passed a law saying that a woman couldn't take a job without her husband's permission, would you consider that just or unjust? Just to engage them in thinking about bigger things. And I'd have the most fascinating discussions in the class. And then you realize their brains are working. They have values. They have senses of what's right and what's wrong.
The boys don't see the girl as less than them.
Well, they may.
Right? No, but you're not going to. In your classroom, think about that.
Yes.
Think about that. Just think about what that person over there and that person over there.
What do they think? And I was also pretty strict. I mean, I didn't tolerate no racist comments in my classroom. You couldn't ask me to change your seat because I don't want to sit next to that person. If I don't want to sit next to a girl, it's like, if that's your seat, that's your seat. I'm not changing your seat. Don't ask me again. You're going to have to learn in the real world how you live with everybody, and it's going to start here. And I had very little trouble after that. Once they realized there were boundaries and rules and stuff, it was not so hard to manage. And I really liked it. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, I could tell. Marc Elrich is here. What are the biggest issues for your county? I mean, we talked employment a little bit in regard to the federal government and all that. What keeps you up? What are the 3 things that are hot buttons for Montgomery County right this minute?
So in this moment, what happens with federal job losses? We're looking at, we could lose anywhere 20 to 40,000 jobs. And the ripple effect on government employees then goes to the subcontractors who, have contracts. Like when USAID was shut down, a whole bunch of Montgomery County companies had to fire everybody because their work was doing USAID missions overseas. They were the ones who executed, did programming.
Feeding people who are now dead because they haven't been fed the last 6 months. Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that worries us because, obviously you lose, say, 20 to 40,000 high-paying jobs, plus the private sector jobs, which are also pretty decent. You lose that, that's an enormous hit on your income taxes. That handicaps our ability to fund programs that we want. I worry about losing the Hispanic workforce. We could probably lose up to 80,000 people if Trump is as serious as he says he is, and if he creates his little ice
If
army.
we all look the other way and allow this lawlessness.
The frustrating thing is you can't stop him. It's heartbreaking to tell people, but I cannot put my police between ICE and these people. It will not work, and it will not happen.
Would that get you arrested?
That would definitely get me arrested, but I'm not sure the police would, if they had to choose between doing what the federal government says and doing what a county executive says or a county government says, they might choose the federal government. And I know a lot of people have the same question about, where the police departments would line up on that if it actually came down to it. So that's a real thing to worry about. But if you lose that percentage of your population, my construction sites go dead. And there are not other people, I keep going back to this, there are not enough unemployed people to fill the void of removing 80,000 workers from the workforce. The restaurants go dead. The retail shops go dead.
Agriculture.
I tried to appeal to one of the other county executives down here.
Who's going to mow the lawns for these rich people?
Well, you can buy now these robot lawnmowers. That
AI lawnmower. Okay.
Right. So there is an AI lawnmower that'll do this job for you, and the rich people can easily afford. But that's one big thing that keeps me worried. I'm worried about cuts to the budget at the state level because of this. If I'm not allowed to spend federal dollars on Head Start programs, what's it going to cost us to fill the gap to make sure those programs go forward? Because if the kids don't have those programs, that's one of the programs in school that we know helps level the playing field for these kids long term.
I have the Y on all the time talking about that. Yeah.
So you take that away, and then what happens to these kids? They enter kindergarten further behind.
And you've seen that as a teacher.
And I see it. This is one of the most frustrating things as a teacher. Almost all the resources in the school system went to assisting kids who were in middle school or high school. Almost no money was spent in the elementary school. Yet every study that was done says that by third grade what the kid's trajectory is going to be academically, because if they haven't learned the basics, they don't get them later. And everything in the later grades is based on the foundation you get in the early grades. And so the failure to get that foundation has lifetime consequences for kids. If we don't have the money to fund early childhood education, and we don't have the money to make sure interventions in elementary school happen, we're going to produce another generation of kids who are not going to be fit for the workforce and not able to do what a modern society needs them to do. And that keeps me up at night.
And might be uneducated enough to vote for Donald Trump.
And might be. But it's not just my world. It's going to be everybody's world. And that's what I wish everybody would take a deep breath, regardless what they think on race issues, and just say, think about your economic self-interest just for one frickin' second. And what happens to a world when these people aren't there working?
Play this out, strategize this, do the long tail.
Yeah.
Of this. Marc Elrich is here. He's Montgomery County. I have Brooke Learman going to come on, and we're going to talk a bit. So a quick hit on baseball. I mean, your Yankees stink right now. They might not even make the playoffs.
And
I just want to tell you that.
It's really disappointing.
Isn't it?
It's amazing.
Spend that much money and waste it.
I am not an Aaron Boone fan, and I think the Yankees have had consistent problems with pitcher injuries for several years. Well, but they seem to be on steroids with that. And what worries me about pitching in baseball, too much emphasis is, can you hit 100? And in the old days, you had pitchers who were throwing in the 90s. Not everybody was throwing 100. Whatever Nolan Ryan was the
Shane
golden.
Speeds was all a part of the
Yes,
axiom.
that was pitching. It was ball movement. It was location. It was fooling the batter. All those things. I knew, I could pitch a little bit. And when my kid was playing ball, I would pitch for pitch batting practice to the kids. I would throw a curveball, and I'd throw it at their heads, but the ball would break over the plate. And I'd watch the kids fall back.
Yeah, of course.
And I said, guys, read the rotation on the ball. If the ball is going like this, it's curving. It is not going to hit your head. Dynamics will force it to break to the left. If you throw, and it's a hard pitch to throw, if you throw a screwball ball and break your wrist in the opposite direction and it's spinning that way, it's going to go in on you. So read the rotation. So I love that. So, but also, because of your point about pitching, when you had to be a complete pitcher, you didn't have to throw your arm out. When everybody's trying to throw at high speed, max effort every single time, you are going to bust your elbow at some point.
And they all have.
And they all are. And they're doing it multiple times. It's amazing. You can go through Tommy John surgery more than once.
Oh, we got Bradish coming back second time here. So,
yeah.
Well, my team's in last place. Hopefully this time next year it's a little better than that for us, all right?
Yeah, well, Yankees got to pick up a pitcher. They need a catcher. They got to do something about Volpe at shortstop. I mean, everybody had the highest hopes for him, but he's batting, 208 or 211?
I love seeing the Yankees suffer while we suffer, so it's all good.
I was going to say, when I was growing up, I loved watching the Orioles suffer because I grew up in the era where the Yankees were winning all the pennants in the World Series.
Yeah.
And so my Oriole friends in school was always it's tough. You guys aren't going to be there in the postseason. The first time the Orioles won, I had to endure, how are you Yankees doing? So,
well, you were probably a Mets fan at 69 for a minute or two.
I'll tell you, my National League, I was a Hank Aaron fan when I was a kid.
Okay.
He was my favorite him and Mantle were my two favorite baseball players. And when I learned to bat, looking at how Aaron batted, because he had a thing where he moved, how he rotated his wrists. That was something that was pointed out to me when I was young and playing ball. And
a little bit of a follow through for power. He had Steve Garvey. Yeah.
So I followed Aaron, and he was in Milwaukee in the 50s. When they went to Atlanta, I broke my usual prohibition on rooting for a team in the Confederacy, and I said, I'll root for the Atlanta Braves as long as Aaron plays. And then when Aaron's done, I go back to the Mets. And so when Aaron was done and left baseball, I went back to the Mets. You like the way I do my baseball, all my sports teams. It's Union State over Confederate State, Union State over Border State over Confederate State. If they were territory at the time of the Civil War, I tried to figure out if they were free or slave territory, and then I would make the same calculation, free over slave. And because you got to have a reason for liking teams, and I figured the best rationale I could have is free and slave states. And that's how I make all my sports choices.
We're going to get together. We're going to get a crab cake in Montgomery County. Marc Elrich is here. He is Montgomery County executive. I got to go. I could sit here all day and go with an old school teacher about baseball. We're at Mako. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. We're talking to all sorts of people about all sorts of things. Love being down here. It is our 27th anniversary. Back for more. In Ocean City, we are Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.